Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand, welcome to another edition of our interviews while we're out here on tour. I'm pleased to say we've got Rob Dawson of ESPN with us here today. Rob, cheers for coming on, mate.
No, thank you for having me, appreciate it.
No problem, mate. I mean, you've done many of these tours. I just want to personally thank you for pre-warning us in Bangkok Airport about what we was in store for. Yeah. But it has been an absolute whirlwind of a tour. I mean, has this one been any different for you in terms of, I mean, it's the first one since COVID, so obviously it's a bit of like a fresh start as such, but as far as tours go, how has this one been for you so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite calm, to be honest. I mean, we've been on tours in the past, particularly under Jose, where it just felt like there was something happening every other day. You know, whether it was a transfer or a player arriving and then leaving again, or some kind of controversy. This one seems to be quite smooth, really, which is exactly what the manager will have wanted. He mentioned in his press conference yesterday that these tours aren't really ideal. Really, he wants to be at Carrington with all the facilities that they've got there. They have to come here for the commercial side, to see other parts of the world, to give fans from other countries the chance to see United, and he understands that. But in terms of how it's actually gone, I think it's actually gone quite well. I imagine when it was planning the tour, or when he realised he had to go, he was kind of dreading it a little bit. But I think once he leaves and gets back to Manchester, he'll be quite happy with how it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, not much in terms of headlines. Two players have arrived at Old Trafford while we've been out here on tour, but it's gone pretty quiet since. I think a lot of United fans are like, oh no, it's not going to be like Ten Hag said in his interview in his press conference yesterday, it's like we've bought a midfielder, we're happy with that in Eriksen. Obviously, the big story has been Jong all summer. I mean, we've spoke to many journalists while we've been here, and it's always been the same. It's like we're just waiting for Barcelona. Is there, from what you know, is there any sort of plan B in that area right now?
And there are certainly other players on the list. I just get the impression that for Ten Hag, Jong is such the ideal player that they want to do everything they possibly can to try and get that over the line. It may be a case later in the window where Barcelona aren't playing ball, or Jong says he doesn't want to come. And then you have to look elsewhere, and he'll have to then decide whether he's got a player in the squad who can do that job, or whether he needs to go out and sign someone like, I don't know, Tielemans at Leicester. Someone that you could probably do quite quickly, really, because Leicester, he hasn't got a contract for very long at Leicester, and they would probably look to sell quite quickly. So it is one that you could fall back on. I just think that he's come in and he set such high standards, on the training pitch and with the way the club is run and the transfer targets, that he wants his number one man, and he wants to take it as far as he possibly can until he knows either way whether he's coming or not. And it'll only be then that they'll decide either to stick with the squad that they've got, or to change their mind and move with someone else. Because I just think he's a top target, and I think he probably, he owes it to the start of the season to try and get that number one player in, and they're going to do everything they can to get it.
Yeah, do you reckon United would have made contact with these like the likes of Leicester, likes of Wolves and Neves that have been mooted? Do you reckon there would have been something in place? Do you reckon contact would have been made? Because obviously we've heard that Tielemans was wanted by Arsenal and other clubs, but he's not gone anywhere yet. That sort of leads into what you're saying as such. It's like there seems to be like a domino effect here. If something does or doesn't happen, then that will trigger Tielemans. Do you reckon United have been in touch with other parties on that?
Yeah, I'm sure they have. I mean, I'm not suggesting there's deals in place for Neves or Tielemans that they could just kind of go to Leicester and Wolves and say, right, we'll do that and then get it done. But there will have been contact. They'll know whether the player wants to come. They'll know vaguely what the valuation is of those players. What it would take to get a deal over the line. They'll have all that information. And at the moment, it is just waiting for Jong. Obviously, the Jong thing is quite complicated. It's more complicated than deals we've seen in the past because of what Barcelona are going through, and the wages that are owed to Jong as well. So it is a complicated one. It's something that United have stressed to us all along, that it's not as simple as kind of just paying up. In the past, United have been criticised, haven't they, for knowing a valuation for a player and then going in quite low and then just increasing the bid every now and again, and fans just get annoyed with it, and they just say, look, we want you to pay the money, pay the money, get the player, do the deal. And in United's defence this time, it's not the case with this one. It is quite complicated. It's more complicated than deals I've seen in the past, and it is taking time. That the danger is that there's only a finite time to get it done. Obviously, the deadline is quickly approaching. It is at what point do you pull the plug? Do you leave to halfway through the day on deadline day, or do you say 2 weeks out? Look, we're done now. We're moving on.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we looked at questions that were asked to Ten Hag. I think Fred was brought up. So everyone's obviously talking about this, journalist and everyone and all the fans are thinking, who would Ten Hag think can fill that void? What we've got, he's talked about using from what we've got. Fred, in a lot of fans' opinions, isn't quite that player. I don't know what type of player he is. We've seen the young players like Charlie Savage come in, Iqbal's come in, Hannibal, we're thinking may get game time tonight. Does it look like he's just all in on De Jong for you and looking within if he doesn't get him, would you say?
I think he's a little bit more relaxed now that Martinez is here. United have stressed to us that they've signed Martinez as a defender.
Okay,
he played as a defender for Ajax. It was something. He's obviously a player that Ten Hag knows well, but he can play in midfield. And I'm not suggesting that he's been brought in as a midfielder, but I kind of get the impression that Ten Hag is a little bit more relaxed about the whole situation, knowing that if worst came to worst, you could probably play Martinez there as well. It's not like you would weaken the back four either, because he's got so many central defenders. I mean, he's got 4 here as it is, and Martinez isn't even here yet, so he is well covered in that area. And actually, when we did our interview with Ten Hag, someone said to him on the way out, about Martinez and can he play in different positions, and he said, yeah, that's one of the reasons why we brought him here. So I think he's a little bit more relaxed. I'm not suggesting again that Martinez has been brought in to play midfield every week, but it's obviously a possibility. He's done it before. He can do it. It obviously wouldn't be ideal if he started against Brighton with Martinez in the central midfield, because he's been signed as a centre half. But it is a decent fallback option.
That's it. And Donny playing better as well. There's another option there in him and how he can be used in that role, because he played a similar role for him in Ajax. And fans are like looking at Donny now as like, you'd naturally expect him to come back here now after being on loan at Everton and feel more comfortable with Ten Hag. The question's been asked to him. Do you feel like, and like just looking around the squad at the moment, the way it is and the good vibe around the squad, you reckon Donny could play a role in all of this as well?
He should do. I mean, he should be very excited when they hired Ten Hag in the summer. Obviously, it couldn't have been a better appointment for him, really, because he has had a tough time since he's been here. There were question marks around him joining at the time when he did. It almost felt like it was not a panic buy is the wrong word, but it's something that they just kind of rushed into because they knew he was available and they knew they had to sign someone in midfield. And it hasn't worked out for him. He didn't play a lot that first season. Obviously, last season was poor as well. He went to Everton, didn't really play, had an injury. I think the hope was that he'd go to Everton, play a load of games, come back refreshed. Obviously, that didn't happen. This summer, I think he's done all right. I think maybe some fans were expecting him to play a bit more of a central role. He's not started any games out here. It's always been Fred and McTominay. Obviously, the pair of them together have got a bit of a bad reputation among United fans because they feel it's a little bit cautious. I think we're only going to see until the start of the season. Ten Hag in the past has worked with quite tight squads, but he's made a point on this tour of saying that he wants more players. It's going to be a very, very strange season with the World Cup, and you've got the Europa League and 2 cup competitions, so it is going to be tough. And he feels like he needs a bigger squad. When he's saying stuff like that, players like Donny should look at that and think, well, I'm going to get opportunities. It's my job to take it. Maybe he doesn't start against Brighton. I very much doubt that he will. But there's going to be a League Cup game. Following that, there's going to be a Europa League campaign. You play well in those games, and then you play in the Premier League. That's just the way it works. He should be looking at the season excited, because he hasn't got a better opportunity really to make his mark at Man United. He's got a manager that trusts him, who knows exactly what he can do. He just needs to go out and prove it now. That's
it, innit? Because you've got the words of Louis van Gaal in his ears. You have to be playing first team football to get in that World Cup squad. So you're looking at someone like Donny and you're going, am I going to be a first team player? And it's a tough one for him when he's looking at the World Cup as well.
It is. I mean, and that is the strange element of this season. And United have said that to us as well, that there haven't been that many outgoings, but it may be a case that you get into the first couple of days of the games of the season, players realise they're not going to play, and then looking at the World Cup and think, well, I have to be playing somewhere. I can't just sit on the bench and wait for my opportunity. Players like Donny, even players like Marcus and Jadon Sancho, they need to be playing games to get back in the England squad in time for the World Cup. Now, I'm not suggesting that United are going to let Rashford and Sancho go. I mean, I imagine that they'll both start against Brighton if they're fit and ready to go. But someone like Donny will look at that game and think, am I going to get enough games between the start of the season and November to get back into that squad? Because Van Gaal has made it very clear that he needs to be playing. United haven't, as far as I know, completely ruled out the possibility that Donny could go. They see his situation and think, well, obviously we want to keep him here. We want him as a part of the squad. Ten Hag obviously likes him, but ultimately it's going to be down to the player. If he looks at the first couple of games of the season and realises that he's not getting many minutes, he's going to have to make a hard decision. It's whether he wants to risk his future at Man United to force his way into the World Cup squad, or whether he wants to sit there and bide his time and wait, and ultimately that will be down to him.
Yeah, the other major talking point is obviously Cristiano. A lot of the press have been pushing Ten Hag on that. He's been very strict and very straightforward with his answers regarding Ronaldo. I don't know if it was yourself or someone asked a question yesterday regarding who Ronaldo comes in for, because he is that type of player that's going to demand to play. And with the front three, like you said, them playing as well as they can, the pressure on them again for the World Cup. Martial as well, if he has a good start to the season, he could be pushing back at Deschamps as well in the French squad. And you just said them, Rashford and Sancho. someone's got to drop out, and I think it changes everything. It changes the whole aspect of what we've been watching here as well with Ronaldo. Can you see Ten Hag standing strong with Ronaldo from what you've seen and like not putting him straight in, or is he going to play?
I mean, it's Ronaldo, isn't it? At the moment, I don't think they get straight back in.
No.
You know, Martial's played particularly well. I mean, even some of the coaching staff that we saw around the stadium before we came in was saying that it's not just his goals. You know, he's taken on all the information about how he has to press, the way that he runs, the way that he puts pressure on defenders, and they've been so impressed with the way that he's taken it all on board. You know, he's got this reputation of being a little bit lazy, hasn't he, among United fans? But that's not what they've seen at all. They've seen him take on all this information. And you'll put it into practice on the pitch in the game. So it's not just the goals that's impressed Ten Hag and his coaching staff. This is quite a complicated system. You know, they're all obviously that they're here to get fit, but they're also here to learn how Ten Hag wants to play. And Anthony Martial's had 3 weeks of that, and Ronaldo's not had any of it. You know, he's training, and we can all see on Instagram that he's training and keeping fit, which is what you'd expect. But unless you're down with the squad and playing and learning how the team want to play under a new manager, you're always at a disadvantage. And ultimately, if this was a Premier League game tonight and Ronaldo was here, you'd have to say that Martial should start.
Yeah.
Now, there's no reason in the world really to pick Ronaldo. You've got someone coming in who doesn't know how the manager wants to play, who is not match fit. And you know, we're 2 weeks away from Brighton at the moment. I can't see a way that Ronaldo starts that game. I can't. No, that's the wrong way. I can see him starting it, but I can't see that why he should.
Yeah.
You know, it's Ronaldo, and I get that. He's fantastic goal scorer, a wonderful player. But at the moment, Martial is miles ahead in terms of match fitness and kind of, even just awareness of the way that Ten Hag wants to play. So at the moment, he's taking his chance, and he should start.
That's it. It's the old fear. It's the fear within the fan base, and it's been brought up as well in the media regarding Martial. When competition comes around for that place, he sort of takes a back seat, and what the fans would say is like more of a sulking mode, like I've been hard done to, rather than fighting for that position. That's the fear, because we know Martial is probably the best out of the three here in Sancho, Rashford, Martial, for playing that central role. We're short on numbers for a striker. Do you think Ten Hag will be able to manage Martial better than other managers in that? Have you got that impression that he can get him there and say, you may have to be number two sometimes?
I hope so. And what you just mentioned there is exactly what happened last summer. I went on to St Andrews in Scotland where they were having their training base. That was before Ronaldo arrived, and I saw Martial walking around the hotel, and he was laughing and joking, and people were even commenting in the hotel about how relaxed he was, how much he was looking forward to the season. And 2 weeks later, they signed Ronaldo, and his whole mood changed. He realised that he was going to have to play second fiddle to Ronaldo, that Ronaldo was going to come in and play most of the games. He wants to play as a centre forward. He doesn't really want to play out wide, even though he can do it. And he realised that he wasn't going to play many games. He was promised halfway through the summer, when it looked like all the business had been done by Solskjaer, that he was going to be their main centre forward again. And he was quite excited about that. But someone came in, and like you say, that instead of kind of knuckling down and trying to get his teeth into it and win his place back, he kind of took a back seat, and his body language wasn't always right at training, all that kind of stuff. And that is a worry with Anthony, and it has been all the way through. I mean, I can remember speaking to Jose at one point, and him saying, it's great when he's smiling, but when it's not, it's not great. And that's the kind of player he is. You need to keep him smiling, and he is at the moment. He's looked relaxed. He's looked great in the games. He's obviously scoring. He's working hard. Obviously, the coaching staff are happy with him as well. The dynamic changes though when Cristiano comes back. How Ten Hag handles that, I'm not sure, because you've got two quite different personalities. Ronaldo will expect to play every week. Martial will look at the summer and go, well, I've done enough to start every week. It's how Ten Hag handles that.
It's hard to balance it, because Ronaldo pretty much was keeping us afloat on his own last season, and we've seen players drop off. It's like Bruno's form fell off a cliff, Rashford even more, and it just looks like them players now seem to play better as a team, whereas the individual of Ronaldo takes centre stage every single time. And it's the fear, and I can tell by the way you're trying to explain it there as well, Rob. It's like you worry when Ronaldo comes in that all of this hard work just changes, and you don't want to sort of put that on Ronaldo, because he is a legend of the club and he is a world-class player. But there's a fear that Ronaldo coming back could really upset everything and all the hard work that's already been done.
There is an element of that. I mean, the debate about last season is never going to go away, whether you feel like Ronaldo was the issue or not. When someone scores 20, 25 goals, it's hard to say that they were the problem. But he does change the way that you play. You have to play in a certain way to get the best out of him. Ten Hag has made no secret of the fact that he wants his team to press. Ronaldo, at 37 years old, isn't going to press. Ideally, he wants to play with someone else up front, which again changes the entire system of how you set up. It's hard when you look at a player like Ronaldo, because it's like, well, if you're saying you shouldn't play, then you're taking 20 odd goals out of your team. Like, why would you want to take 20 odd goals out of your team? And I get it, but sometimes you do look at it and think, would things be easier if Cristiano wasn't here? And I can understand people looking at that and going, well, yeah, it is. It's hard, and not, with Cristiano, not everything is his fault.
No.
He's become this thing. He's more than a football player. This thing follows him around wherever he goes, and that's not his fault. All he wants to do really is play football. But because it's Cristiano, it becomes the biggest issue regardless of what he's done. He's not even here, and every single press conference we've had at least 2 or 3 questions, and that's the kind of player, the kind of brand that he is.
That's it. I mean, you talked about the big squad there. We've talked to everyone, and no one can see a way that certain players that we all know should be leaving the football club. So I'm just going to ask you in terms of what you think, the player-wise, time is up at Manchester United, because it's hard for anyone to see a way out for these players with the wages that they're on and who can afford them. It has to be the Premier League, and not many Premier League clubs, are going to take certain players on. I mean, is there a list that you would say, in your opinion, it's time up now in terms of out of this football club? There's a lot gone in terms of like the free transfers, and quite a lot of the wage bill has been slashed with the players that have left already.
Yeah, I mean, and Ten Hag has it's not luck,
that's
is
the
it?
point. Now, has he talked on in private at all about anyone that could possibly be leaving or anything like that?
Not in terms of names, but I think it's fairly common knowledge that he's got too many centre halves. He's got four here already. He's signed Martinez. You've got Phil Jones at home. Axel Tuanzebe is at home. I think he feels he's got enough games next season for Martinez, Maguire, Varane and Lindelof. But that also then leaves Bailly, Jones, Tuanzebe. In terms of quality, I think Bailly is a great player. I think he's had some fantastic games for Man United. He just hasn't been able to stay fit. And you look at that and think, well, is he going to get a chance? Is he going to get a chance in a League Cup game? Well, probably not, because it's going to be Varane and Lindelof. Yeah. You get an injury to Maguire, and it's going to be Varane or Lindelof coming in. Bailly's still miles down that pecking order. Phil Jones isn't even here. That would obviously cast doubt on his long-term future. Axel Tuanzebe again was out on loan last year. He's not been here. He's not been here to impress Ten Hag. You would think that he's going to probably look to move. But again, United don't sell well, or haven't sold well in the last 10 years. You mentioned there about wages. That's a massive problem, especially with someone like Eric Bailly. There are plenty of teams that want a centre-half as good as Eric Bailly, but he signed a new long-term contract not that long ago. He's on a massive wage for a Premier League centre-half, particularly one that's not really going to play. It's very, very difficult to shift these players, because Bailly could be looking at this and going, well, why should I go? Yeah. I'm going to stay on my wage here. Why don't I take a 50% pay cut to go and play somewhere else? And he's well within his rights to sit there and just wait.
It's like the Gareth Bale effect at Real Madrid, pretty much, isn't it? It's players earning a lot of money, and it's just his family, his lifestyle and everything, and he's in Manchester, so you can totally understand it. Like you said, it's pretty much the business that was done before that Ten Hag is having to deal with. It's 5 different managers worth of squad, and he's got to try and balance everything there. In terms of the players and the way that we're training right now, you personally, from what you've seen so far, we touched on like the tours and how they've been different before, like Jose and stuff like that. Are you impressed with what you've seen from Ten Hag? Are you impressed with the way he's handled himself around learning the way things are at Manchester United? Because it's a big step from Ajax to United to go straight on tour like this, the first one in so many years, and the press so eager to find out, and the fans so eager to find out what he's like and how he's going to approach it. Have you been impressed with the way he's handled himself?
Yeah, he has been impressive to me, and I must admit that when I arrived here, I wasn't sure whether he was going to be able to handle that, because it is a massive club. It's different from anything he's ever seen before, even at somewhere like Ajax. But it has been impressive. Even just on the training ground, in the past we've been used to seeing sort of Solskjaer and Radnick and Jose, or even Louis kind of taking a back seat at training, letting his coaches do it, delegating a lot of that work to his coaches and just standing back and taking a wider view. And Ten Hag hasn't done that. He's been right in the middle. I mean, you've been at training with us and seen exactly what he's been like. Right in the middle, giving instructions, direct instructions to individuals, walking them off, away from the pitch and then walking them back. Obviously, trying to give them a lot of information. And even that is a lot different from managers we've seen here in the past. In terms of everything else, again, there's so much that goes on to putting on these tours, the commercial work, the demands that are placed on the players, and he hasn't shirked away from that. He wants to know exactly what players are doing, exactly when they're doing it, and for how long, and when they're going to be back in the rooms, when they're going to be sleeping, when they're going to be eating, when they're going to be able to train, all that sort of stuff. And in the past, we've seen managers kind of take a back seat with that. We let the commercial department handle that. We're going to trust you that you can handle that. But but he hasn't. He wants to know everything about everyone, whether it's a staff member or a player. Absolutely everything. His attention to detail, from just what I've seen in the last 2 weeks, has been absolutely phenomenal, and it's been very, very, very impressive. Considering he's just come in cold, never seen anything like this. Fans at a hotel in Bangkok at 11 o'clock at night cheering when a player walks down for a Diet Coke or something. It's madness, these tours. It is, and it takes a while to get used to. But he hasn't shirked any of that. He's carried himself really well and he obviously doesn't particularly like doing media, but he realises he has to do it. It's part of the job, and he's been very, very impressive. You just have to hope that this translates onto the field when we start the season.
That's it, yeah. I mean, I think Bruno Fernandes in his interview with Melissa on Sky yesterday was pretty much that you just described there. But the best thing that came out of that was Bruno Fernandes and how he replied to the question is this is what we needed.
Yeah.
So it's like the players have actually realised that this is what a real coach manager is, and that's obviously coming across because we can see it in the vibe around the players. It looks like it's a good atmosphere, and on the pitch even better from what we've seen. I know it's still just pre-season, but you can only comment on what you see, and it has been really good.
Yeah, and just from the coaching element, it's been a complaint from United fans for a while now that players like, Marcus Rashford in particular, the way that he bursts onto the scene, has he improved in a way that, say, I don't know, Sterling did at City or that kind of player, and he hasn't got that much better. His output hasn't really changed that much. He's still basically the same player as he was a few years ago, and that's not necessarily his fault. Lots of United fans will look at that and go, that's a lack of coaching. He's had Louis van Gaal, and then he had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who was a bit more hands-off in terms of coaching. But now he's got a manager who wants to make him better. He wants to talk to him all the time, tell him exactly how he wants to play, exactly where he should be running, exactly where his touches should be, exactly where he should be looking to get the ball in the box and around the box. And that can only help a player who's still developing. Again, it's easy for us to sit here and go, oh, he looks great, look at him, he's talking to him, he's talking to him, he's doing this and that. Proof will be in the pudding when we start seeing the results, and there are going to be some absolute horror shows this season.
Oh, yes, there is.
We're saying to some of the journalists when we did the sit down interview with Ten Hag, we always walk away from these interviews with managers going, oh, he was brilliant, he was doing this and he said this and isn't he great? And then 2 months later it's like, oh well, he's going to get sacked in a bit. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time. But as I say, he was very impressive. We just have to hope that all this stuff that seems so positive on the pitch, on the training pitch, translates into results on the field when we get going. That's
it. I mean, for you, from the tour so far, game 4 right now, who stood out in terms of players? And there's a lot of players that needed to do a lot more from last season, but has there anyone stood out in particular for you?
I mean, Martial's the obvious one because we started the summer not really knowing what his future was going to be. There was a suggestion by Man United even at the start of the summer that they could be open to offers for him because he'd come back on loan from Seville and they weren't really sure what he wanted to do and whether Ten Hag would fancy him. We're told now that he's going nowhere. He's been very impressive. Ten Hag's been impressed with his performances on the pitch. So in terms of the biggest winners of these tours, you'd have to say Anthony Martial, but there have been others as well. Jadon Sancho has done really well. Marcus Rashford a little bit more understated but has done well. Bruno has looked a little more like the player that we saw when he first came in rather than the one that played last season. Fred as well, I thought Fred gets an awful lot of stick and probably will again next season because he's the type of player, just seems like a bit of a lightning rod for it, but I think he's been good as well. And I also must say that Harry Maguire, this has been a difficult tour for him. He obviously got booed in Melbourne. He made a mistake in one of the games as well. It's not been easy, but he has played all right. That game in Melbourne, aside from the boos, he looked all right. He looked a bit more composed than we saw perhaps last season. So Anthony Martial probably definitely the biggest winner, but there have been a few others as well. Yeah,
here's a killer question now for you, mates. Finish up predictions for next season. Not in terms of where we're going to finish, but I've asked this question before to other journalists. I want to know what is a good season for United next season, considering the competition. We've got the best managers in the world in this league ahead of Ten Hag, and we're already way behind them squad strength and like that. Is it realistic for you to say top 4 is an overachievement, or would you say United need to be getting top 4? Where are you at with it all?
You're right. I mean, the league is strong. Sitting here right now, can I see him finishing 4th? Probably not. They obviously need to be back in the Champions League as quickly as possible. What I would hope is that if they don't finish 4th, that they don't sack him. Yeah. Post Fergie, there's never been a manager who's had a full season in charge, not qualified for the Champions League and kept his job, and that needs to change. Because what I think United fans will see, the best thing I think United fans will see next season is a team with an identity and a way that they're trying to play. Win, lose or draw, they're going to walk away from Old Trafford going, yeah, I kind of understood what he was trying to do there. And that's not always been the case.
True,
I think if United fans see a plan and a way forward, I think they'll be happy with that. Finishing 4th, 5th, 6th, 2nd, whatever, in the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter because United should be winning the league, and they're obviously not going to next season because they've got City and Liverpool. But I think that the very least that we can expect is to see a team with an identity and a squad beginning to be moulded in the way that the manager wants it. 4th would be an unbelievable achievement, I think. 4th in a trophy, United fans would bite their hand off for that at the moment, wouldn't they? But I don't think it's the end of the world if they don't finish 4th. I think that Richard Arnold, the Glazers, have to stay strong. If it is 5th or 6th or even worse than that, they just have to stay strong. Hopefully they see enough on the pitch to encourage them that they're going in the right direction. As I say, 4th would be brilliant, but it's not the end of the world if they don't. Yeah,
I think a lot of United fans would echo that, myself included. I do think 4th is an overachievement for where we are at now and so early in Ten Hag's reign, but I think a trophy would be nice just to put that voodoo to bed. That would just settle a lot of United fans down.
A day out of Wembley.
I've not been to Wembley for... I can't remember the last time I went now. I think it was for a league game against Spurs when they was just sharing the stadium.
But that's United fans just want a bit of excitement.
Yeah, a run.
A run. A FA Cup semi-final at Wembley, a day out. Something to really bring back the enjoyment, because you speak to a lot of United fans and they've lost the enjoyment. Over the last couple of years, they have lost it, and then ultimately it's football. It's meant to be enjoyable. A good day out. Get behind the team. That's if they can get that next season, and again a team with an identity, a real way of playing, I think most United fans would settle for that.
Definitely. Rob, cheers for coming on. Really appreciate it, guys. All of the quotes will be on our Twitter feed from Rob, and a link to his account if you want any more information on anything that Rob breaks or any of the other journalists that we've been speaking to. It's all there on our Twitter account. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will be back with videos of the game that we're watching here today. Like, share and subscribe as always, and we'll catch you probably... Well, after that, I'm thinking it's getting close to Manchester now. It's nearly time to go home. Tour's nearly finished. Thank God. It's knackering. But yeah, we've learnt a lot on this tour. Let's just say that. But yeah, guys, cheers for watching. Stay tuned for the other videos that are coming up after the game.
The United Stands on tour. Supported by Wash and Go.